Great. So welcome to November's webinar, where we're introducing some of the features for UniPhi 15.1. So we've got some exciting new features to show you. I'm going to run you through a couple of them, and Trudy is going to show us through one as well. So I added one thing onto the list that we sent out, but we've got a new dashboard in the contracts module. We can now link issues to variations directly. There are variation custom fields, and Trudy's going to talk about those and how we can use them. And we've got two new paste from Excel features, so pasting in expenses and pasting in resource plans, both of which reduce the data entry load considerably. So I'll just get out of PowerPoint and jump into a UniPhi deployment, and I'll take us to the content module, where we pick a project. So the costs module is what I meant to look for. And so obviously the first project I go for doesn't have the data that I'm looking for, but we'll go to everything. There we are. So here we've got our standard view in the contracts module, and you're all probably familiar with the list view that lists it by project. The financial view that gives you, spend by financial year, and the contracted view, which is your, cost report view. So your view by cost codes and your commitments. And we now have the mixed view that combines these. Where this is exciting, as you can see here, there's my approved budget, there's my commitments, there's my actuals to date for this financial year. And then, so I've got my remaining committed value. So I can see very quickly here in this view what I've got left to spend from my commitments, which is useful, as well as remaining budget there too. So where you're looking at what have I spent against my commitments, this mixed view gives it to you. It was possible to work it out before, but we've got it now here in one view. So we're quite pleased with that, and it's already proved useful for a number of our clients. We've had really good feedback on that, so give that a try. So with linking variations to projects, I'm just going to go into a project here and log a new variation So this is going to be a big problem on our project, and it's a design issue. We didn't design the project to take into account of the enormous asteroid, and I'm just going to save that there. I've got that issue logged against the project, but I've looked at it, I'm going, this is going to cost us money. So I now can come into my contract in the contracts module, and when I add a variation, so I'll just do a lump sum variation. Yeah, this asteroid's definitely a latent condition. Here's my estimate of what I think I'm going to do. I'm just putting it as a possible variation at the moment because I want to flag this up, and I'll just throw it against structural steel. And I've now got down here both issue category and link to issue. So I can select my issue category, so design in this case, and then here's the issue that I've logged against it here. So now when I save that variation, there's my standard claim view of the variations, and I can change that to the issues view. And here we go. Each of these three issues, each of these three variations, I should say, has an issue associated with them. I might just zoom this in slightly to make it a bit easier to see. So I can click on this issue here from the contract itself and go straight into here and then read the comments, see any emails that have been saved in with the Outlook plugin, look at what actions people are taking in order to manage anything to do with this variation. Or if I'm here in the issue and I can got myself up to date on what's happening with this and what we're doing to manage it, I can then see down here that our current estimate for this issue is for it to cost us 50 grand. And I can link back straight to the contract by clicking on that link and get back in here to my contract and, you know, amend the status of the issue or update the estimate for it. So it's a handy feature. In the past, you've had to create a document to create that link, and the link has never been direct. So now you've got a direct link between what you're managing in your issues module to keep track of on the project and where that's going to impact as a variation against your contracts and what the cost of that is. So that's quite nice. Now, I'm just going to unmute Trudy here because Trudy is going to talk about variation custom fields.
Hi everyone. Can you hear me?
I can hear you and everyone else
Great.
is muted. So
Okay.
let's assume they can hear you.
We'll assume they can. All right. So one of the issues, particularly in QS land with variations, was that there wasn't necessarily enough references to be able to sort and cut and dice and do all sorts of things with variations. So the software developers have been legends and they have created an area where we can make custom fields. So yes, you can highlight those, Simon, so we can see the custom fields. So you can see here where I've actually got our variation for our need to dig a bigger hole. So that's a bit of a latent condition. And you can see that we've got a CA001 for $3,000. So what that is, that CA001 is actually a custom field. And then we've got demolition has uncovered asbestos, and we've got that as CA002, also a custom field. And you'll see we've got a contract adjustment text, CA001. So what I've done there is I've said, well, okay, our project manager is going to make a contract adjustment and he's going to have his own reference, and he may not be using UniPhi. I'm not sure why he would not be using UniPhi, but in this particular case, he's not. So what I'll do now is talk you through how you actually create those. So if you go into your hamburger menu, and this is great because I get to tell Simon what to do here, which is a bit exciting. We go into configuration and we go into contracts because variations are generally to do with contracts. Yep. And okay, and if you have a look across, yes, we have got variation custom fields. So these work very similar to any of your project custom fields that you create, in that you create a group and then you have your fields underneath that. So in our case, we've created a group called contract adjustments. So Simon, would you like to just quickly make up another group and we'll show how that works? I mean, I'm sure you probably all know how to do this already, but never hurts to have a refresher. Oh, I love it. Solar system bodies, that's great. So now when we go down and create our variation custom fields, we can add a field name. How about Saturn? All right, so we're going to link that to the, yep, easy. Now, we can tell it what sort of field we want. So generally, if you want to do a combined sort of number letter reference, I would use text. If you want a currency, obviously you would use a currency, date, you know, so you choose completely what you want. So in this case, lovely. Okay, so we'll save that. Now, the missing part of this is that we haven't actually linked our project to that variation custom field. So at the moment, if we were to go back into our contract, we wouldn't see that custom field. So I'm just going to get Simon to go back into our ABC contract. Beautiful. And if we click back on the custom fields, and so as you can see, we can't see it. So if we go back up to our contract details, dashboard, click on the contract. And if we scroll down on here, I think, no, sorry, I tell a lie, it's not there. Go up, details across, yep, next to the edit button, that's right. Oh gosh, I've lost myself here. Many apologies. Okay, all right. So we go into the project details screen. So yes, summary there and details there. That's correct. Now if we scroll down, and you see here we've got our contract variation custom fields group. So if you click on that and see how we've got solar system bodies. So we can now change that to solar system bodies, save that. And then if we go back to our contract, and have a look at our variations and our custom fields. And there we go. So we've now got a custom field called Saturn. So that's pretty cool. And you can make up as many or as few of these as you like. So generally, if you need an extra reference for something, so for example, with the external ID, you might use your contractor's ID or something like that when they submit their variation. So if you need an extra reference for whatever reason, custom fields is where to do it. And you can create loads of them. So it's lots of fun.
Thanks, Trudy. And
that's all right.
So the idea there of the different categories of them is to allow you to have different types of custom fields for different either types of projects, different clients, and different situations. So it's or different methodologies. So the way we normally do things in UniPhi to allow you to configure things differently for different methodologies. So on to expenses. Now, I don't know how many of you have tried out the expenses feature, but it's now built into the timesheets module, and it allows you to log expenses, and where you have an accounting integration, it flows through the accounting integration as well. So when I come here into my expenses, there's my timesheet week view, day view, and then expenses. And here are some expenses that I've logged, inputting them one at a time. I can add an expense and put on that information. But rather than adding it one at a time, we can now also import these expenses. And here are some expenses that I prepared earlier. So, for instance, if you've got a company credit card and you can pull the credit card statement off the web into Excel or CSV, you can then just copy that and paste it in here and select the internal costs that we're putting that in against. And UniPhi, as much as it can, maps the data, but then allows you to select the stuff that you need to. Now, in this case, I had everything listed as ex-GST, the GST amount, and then the including GST amount. And I'm actually going to now change the mapping here from that amount to this one being amount, because I'm putting in the expenses including GST. And when I'm doing that, you'll see there's a flag over here, amount tax inclusive, yes. And that it's, GST being applied. So if I was to use this field, the X GST, I would have to change all of these to be no. And the default is yes, because we expect with expenses, in most cases, personal expenses include GST. Now, what this does still need is a project and a code mapping. So I'm going to say this was for the Toorak Road apartments. That one was Bell Street apartments, and that was that one. And they're all going to my post-contract code there. And that's all mapped properly. You see it's picked up the description automatically, and I hit save, and that tells me, because they're all green, that they have been happily imported. Now, because I am an administrator to the system, I can also enter expenses as other people. So I can put in expenses for Brian, or I can import expenses across multiple resources and multiple projects. So if I go to all here, and I'll close that, and here are some ones that are pending, and we're going to add some more to that. So hit import again, cost codes, internal cost, claim as all, and then here's my second sheet of expenses that I select, and Control V to paste. And here we are, there's the description of each one. Once again, I'm going to change the mapping of the amount to be the GST inclusive amount. Because I have the names of people already in my spreadsheet, it's picked them up. And because I had the project name, it's picked that up as well. I also had the cost coding, so I've not had to enter that this time. So I could just hit, save on that, but I'm just going to hit reset here, because say, for instance, I had, mistyped Terry's name here and put an extra M in against it and pasted it in. Over here, you'll see it's got no selection there, because it had not mapped to Terry's name exactly, because I had done a typo on his name, but I could still come down here and select him, and then also select the project that was on. So it's, and again, the mapping here of that amount to the right one, and I hit save, and that's still all gone through. So if you don't have all the resource names or the project names or the coding, you can still select it in here, but often it will be, it may be faster to put them in against your spreadsheet, depending on what data you have. And then that's feeding into the expenses functionality within UniPhi. So the final thing we wanted to show today, before we open up the webinar to questions, is resource planning importing. So I'm going to go to the resources module here. I'm in all projects, and for a while now there's been an import function there. And within this now there are two imports that you can do. You can import contacts, and again this is a paste from Excel function, but that was a UniPhi 15 feature. It's been there for a while, very handy. But there's now this import resource planning. And so what I get the choice now here is to import forecast or budget. And once again, I've prepared a resource plan earlier. So I've got here in my resource plan what people are doing over the next 12 weeks by project, using project IDs, and by resource, using people's names. So I'm just going to select all of that and Control V to paste that in, and that's all come up fine. It's recognised the mapping of the project ID in the resource with any of the resource names or turn red. So if I just, come in here and it's not Jane W. Smith, but it's Jane Q. Smith, who isn't in the system, and paste that. There we are. So that's highlighting as red, saying, well, I can't import that because Jane doesn't exist. So we change it back to the correct one. And reset and paste it. And that's all good now. So when I hit save, that's now telling me it's put all of that data in against those projects, against those resources in the resource plan. So if I go to one of these projects now, one of them was Charters Towers, I'm still in resources, and here in the subnav I go into resource planning. There I can see those hours that have been pasted in for my forecast. So it allows you to get in a lot of resource planning data across multiple projects very quickly. So the final thing we've got to show you is something that people have been asking for since the beginning of time for UniPhi, which is drag and drop to get attachments in to issues. So I'm going to just drill into this issue here, and I'll just minimize this a little bit because I want to show you so here's the items that I'm going to drag in. So here's my picture that I want to drag in to inform information about this particular issue. And I drag it in here, and you'll see this drop files here now appears. And doesn't do anything. Let me just try that again. This is brand new, and we are still debugging this a little bit. Great, it was working for me earlier. Doesn't want to work for me now. Let's try it again, a different issue. There we are. So it was working before when I just dragged it onto the comment. It added a comment, but without me having to add it. But there it is there. And save. And there we are. Sideways photo of my son with his Lego Millennium Falcon. So this is something I've been very excited to have in, to finally be able to drag files in without having to select them. So there we are. I'll unmute everyone, and I'll end the recording.